Hey, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing the early copy I got of Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era from Chip Theory. In Elder Scrolls, 1 to 4 adventurers join together as a party and travel along lands in the Elder Scrolls universe, trying to complete various quests for different guilds before reaching an endgame scenario where they face off against a final boss. Most of the game is focused on tactical combat between units on hex-based maps, in dice-based action resolution and combat, where each character will level up over the course of the campaign, gaining new skills and abilities. So let's discuss 5 things to know about Elder Scrolls. So my number 5, which is a pro for my taste, is the adventure variety and quest variety in the different regions of the game. Each area has its own gazetteer with special rules that govern that region, unique encounters in different towns. And the big thing, there's tons of different quests for each of the 9 guilds, plus a unique endgame for each region. But even zooming in beyond just the basic regions, you have tons of different encounter cards, different encounter types you can have in the game. And they vary from basic clashes to dungeon crawler-ish delves and fully formed dungeons with special rules. So there's just a ton to try out and explore here. The only reason this is my number 5 is because in the end, most of your time is just going to be spent in basic battles, and while these special rules do change them up, it's not a drastic thing. You gotta like this core tactical system. And let's stick with the tactics for my number 4. This is another pro for my taste with some caveats, and that's the enemy variety combined with their activation and tactical movement in the game. So first of all, I love how enemies spawn in the game. You have level 5 and level 1 enemies that are back-to-back with each other. Same thing with level 10 and level 20 enemies. And you have bags for these, and you're just randomly drawing them for each battle. So you get a huge variety in how the enemies come out, what you do with them, what keywords and special powers they have. But you as players know exactly what order they activate in, exactly what their preference is going to be. Their activations are very simple. They just move to and then try to attack within their range, basically. So you can do lots of clever and fun things here. You can have them get in each other's way. You can have your tank pull enemies effectively. You can make enemies blind so they start attacking each other. Just lots of fun tactical options and variety in the enemy encounters. The one caveat, though, and those who have played a lot of Chip Theory games will already know about this, there are tons of keywords. A lot of them are straight from Too Many Bones, but they're under a different name, which could be extra confusing for people. So even though it's fun to have all these enemies, when you get to the late game and you're dealing with like 10 or 12 chips on the board at a time, it can be a little bit much to keep track of exactly what everybody is doing. My number 3 point is a mix for my taste, and that's a general discussion of the balance and luck in the game. So fans of dungeon crawlers and boss battlers in that genre will know that one of the tough things is getting player count balance right, because sometimes a game will be incredibly easy with 4 characters, but impossible with 1 or only 2. That's why a lot of games in these genres force you to have a specific size of your party. And I'll give this game credit in that it does better than most. First of all, for those who played Too Many Bones, they knew that 3 and 4 player was considered a lot easier. But in Elder Scrolls, they did a smart thing where they have extra kind of negative rules you got to deal with. But still, on the negative side, sometimes, especially when you're a solo player and you have limited skills available, you'll just get into a quest that just does not jive with your build, and suddenly the game could be very difficult or even impossible for you. I think this could happen in almost any player count, but is certainly going to happen most commonly with 1 or 2 characters. Then there's also the inherent randomness in the dice resolution of the game. Pretty much all the dice in the game will have at least 1, sometimes 2 of these miss sides. They do give you a tenacity, a useful resource, so it's not a complete loss when you miss, but often your entire strategy for a turn, being able to get in range of the enemy you want to attack, that kind of thing, will rely upon certain dice turning out a certain way. And while there are effects that let you mitigate your dice, let you re-roll them or set them to a specific face, they're pretty few and far between. Or if you roll to kill an enemy and roll terribly, and then they roll great, hitting you back and murder your character, you don't lose automatically unless you're in the final climactic battle of one of the acts of the game. But yeah, randomness and character builds not matching up with the challenges, there are some things to be cautious of here that might frustrate players. But moving on to my number 2, this one is a big pro, very excited about this, and that's the character build variety. So you have a ton of flexibility in how you make your character. There are all these skill trees to mix and match into, and you'll also be leveling up your core statistics, stamina, health, that kind of thing. And what I love maybe most about the system is that while you can go pretty mono-focused in your build and have one thing be your main skill line, they make stat and skill upgrades more expensive as you go deeper into a line, so the game actually makes it very inexpensive to splash into fun little skill combinations. Like if you want to have an archer who also swings a giant axe sometimes, the game very much makes that possible and even encourages that sort of experimentation. And then when you throw in different race combinations, different class combinations, the different kind of gear you can find. I already want more. I already want Chip Theory to have even more expansions for the game, but already there is a ton going on here, and it is just so much fun to explore and build your character and level them up. And my number 1 point for Elder Scrolls builds right into my number 2. It's how you use these dice and the cooldown track and the choices you make with your actions on your turn. So the most important thing you'll be doing on a turn is engaging with enemy units. And when you do that, you get to pick a certain number of dice to roll based on your statistics. You see how they do, and you get to use them and assign them to people. But the more dice you use, the more you fill up this cooldown track. And then you can also get fatigue and fill it up even more. And you're only getting a certain number of dice back each round. And even between battles, this stuff is going to stick around. So you have to really decide, how much do I want to do? How hard do I want to go in this given round? But one of the coolest sides of that is the battle form system. So I already mentioned you can kind of splash into different things, but that really comes into this cooldown too. Because let's say I did a bunch of one-handed sword attacks at first, but then I wanted to use my archery to kill somebody farther away. So now I have to take some fatigue to switch, but I can engage again and roll another 3 or 4 dice. And then if I don't mind the fatigue, I could do that again and roll a few more dice. Now, clearly this is a losing proposition if you don't keep your cooldown and level that up, but you can go big on some turns and then try to hide on other turns. It reminds me a bit of 20 Strong from Chip Theory, where you can kind of overspend on some turns if you don't mind the consequences. And then when you add in cool item abilities, when you add in your tenacity, another resource, and triggering powerful effects for your class, there's just so much tactical goodness and combo-licious dice play here. I love it. So overall, if you're looking for a meaty tactical experience, some fun adventuring shenanigans, really cool customizable character creation, then Elder Scrolls might be the perfect game for your needs. I've certainly enjoyed it a ton. But on the other hand, if you're looking for a quick experience and not a 5 to 6 hour campaign overall, or if you don't like dice luck, or the chance that your build just doesn't fit the encounter you're playing, or honestly, if you just want a simple experience where you don't have to keep track of a ton of keywords and look up a lot of rules, this one might not be your favorite. But if you want to see the game in action and judge for yourself, I have 2 plays on the channel, one of an introductory mission and one of an endgame scenario. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.